Hey guys! So today we are going to talk about software developers versus entrepreneurs. So let's get into it. Face paint related to thing at work. The company just turned 2 years and I was basically in charge of putting together a small little celebration party, and for whatever my senses left me, I suppose, or maybe I was just in the mood and I ended up with some face paint. Seems that I still have it on my cheek. Anywho, let's get back to the topic at hand. So what's the difference between an entrepreneur and a programmer or a software developer? Now this is a great question that was actually, or rather a subscriber of mine wanted to have a bit of a perspective on like this this comparison, and also kind of look at it from us programmers, like we software developers, our perspective. Now, you see, the term entrepreneur is it's a loose definition. At the end of the day, all it really means is that you are a business person. You are the sort of person who you create a business value. You're a businessman, if you will. But in software development, it's a little bit of a different flavor, because it has a different meaning to it. Now, what I mean by that is very simple. You see, an entrepreneur, as when it comes to software development, is the sort of person who has an idea in general. Like, this is just broad stroking it. Like, don't get offended if you're an entrepreneur. I'm just trying to define this sort of thing for software developers and kind of get a platform for the discussion, right? So an entrepreneur is usually the sort of person who has a business idea. They have a desire to create something. They have something that they want to be able to build. And in order to achieve that goal, they attain coding skills. Or other programmers, I mean, there are entrepreneurs who outsource their business startup idea and something like that to some type of junior developer out there on the internet who can just write the software for them. Now, the focus for this individual is not the craft of programming. That's where you are. That's what I am. That's the sort of person that works as a person who is an expert, or tries to be at least an expert in software development, the craft itself. But an entrepreneur is not about the craft. An entrepreneur is about the product, the thing that they want to, a great example is that an entrepreneur is the sort of person who, in general, I guess, at least what I can see, what usually happens is they have a great idea, they build it with their software skills, or they hire somebody else to do it. And if the idea takes off and it becomes a company, they very quickly move into management. They don't stay in coding. Because, as I said, an entrepreneur is not the sort of person who you hire to do a programmer's job. An entrepreneur is simply viewing or using software development in order to achieve a goal, to create a product. Software developers are a different breed. These are usually the sort of people who are, at their heart, they're engineers. At their heart, it doesn't really matter what background you have, but they are the sort of people who enjoy the craft. They are the sort of people who you hire to basically build whatever idea you have. They build programs for a living. Think of us as construction workers. You and I, we are construction workers. An entrepreneur is the person, like the person with the vision who wants to build the building itself. Now but usually, depending on your situation, it's kind of costly to hire an army of programmers to build your thing for you. So for some entrepreneurs, it's actually much cheaper and more easily attainable to learn the basics of software development and actually do it themselves. A great example of entrepreneurs you will find in, well, they do it differently, but there are tons of these projects that allow young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs to actually achieve a goal very quickly, such as WordPress is a great example. You can, with very minimal coding skills, actually create a sustainable business by just using WordPress. Firebase is also the sort of thing. I mean, you can use all these types of services or off-the-shelf kind of platforms that will help you attain this, like achieve this goal, this vision for a project that you have. And then when you start earning money, you can start hiring people or do whatever you want. So for us software developers, the main thing that we have to understand here is that the focus is different. That's the biggest change here. Like if think of it as it's just a bit. It's just a different. See, this is what's so tricky about software development, because it's very tricky to define what the difference is, because, all right, yes, an entrepreneur may or may not know how to write software. Does that make them a programmer? Well, technically, yes, you're a programmer if you know how to program. But it's kind of not, it's not the same thing. It's sort of, for me, it's basically like comparing this is a very strong analogy, just bear with me, but think of it as a cab driver versus a race car driver. You both drive a car, but you do it at very different levels and with very different mindsets and very different perspectives. A race car driver is about the racing, like they drive the car for a living. A cab driver is doing it more because they have they want to achieve a goal of some sort. They want to just be paid to earn money. Like the perspective is different. You do it for different reasons. And software development, so for us software developers, it's kind of, honestly, I think that we should take a page from the entrepreneurs. I really do. Because and it's actually not true for the other way around. I think, because the thing is, guys, there is this idea, and this is an idea that comes around only in the heads of engineers. It's just engineers who think this way. And that is that you unconsciously have this thought that the software quality is the thing that is going to give you success in your company or your startup or whatever you're building. This is not so, guys. This is why business people, like politicians, all types of business people, they have understood this from the get-go. Perfection and all that stuff, it is overrated. The people who make the most amount of money and are super successful entrepreneurs, they are not the people who have the strongest coding skills. They are not the people who sit in endless discussions on Reddit to talk about one language over another. They simply pick a language that will allow them to produce the product that they want, and then they go and sell that thing, or they sell the product, or they start making money from it. That's the difference between an entrepreneur and a software developer for me. We software developers have, as I said, a very different focus. And the biggest mistake that we make, and I think that that's why it's so healthy to, and I think that's why it's so critical, that you have to take a step back from the programmer community and start working and start understanding the business world as well. Because when you work as a professional software developer, yes, you are writing software, but you are writing that software for a goal, for a purpose. There's a purpose to the code that you are writing. And a lot of software developers, they just forget that. They get so bogged down into the engineering aspect of what they're doing that they forget that at the end of the day, you are just a construction worker. You're building something for some purpose. You're trying to achieve something with the software. But we don't talk much about that. We simply talk about the semantics of the code, and if the code is good or is it bad, what language should you use, performance, all this stuff is important, guys. It is important, but it's not as important as producing the business value. That's the thing that entrepreneurs get, and that's why I argue that you will never ever see software developers, like real hardcore software developers, become these super massive successes. I mean, look at Bill Gates and Zuckerberg as an example. These are, in my opinion, entrepreneurs. They are probably, I can't really say how good they are at software development, but they, from my perspective, they are entrepreneurs. Linus Torvalds, that's a software developer. That's a programmer. And it's kind of funny, because if you want to make big money, for example, having the entrepreneur mindset is probably the way to go. But if you want a lot of internet cred and have an impact on software development as a whole, then being an expert like, say, Linus Torvalds is, I mean, that's also a viable strategy. Odds of you getting rich, of having like a really popular open source project or something like that may not be as high, but it's just it depends on what you're looking for, I suppose. And if I'm going to end on something, I would like to say this. I would like, as I said earlier, I would like you and me and like everybody else to just I'm not saying that you should be a business person. I'm just saying that it's healthy for you to sometimes just take a step back and think about why you are writing the software you are writing, and what higher purpose that code that you're writing is going to serve. Because when you forget that, that's when you start producing things and you get that aren't really, like you get into things to a point where it's not constructive anymore. And that's the thing that we forget. Engineers do this often. Entrepreneurs don't do that all that often. They have another sort of problem, but then again, that's another video. Anywho, let's finish on saying that if you want to be an entrepreneur, usually the perspective is, all right, you use software in order to create a product of some sort so that you can actually start a business or something of that nature. That's the perspective, or that's the focus. Software engineers or software developers, we are more about the craft, producing software for some purpose, more generic, and usually a lot more invested into software development itself, and on average a lot more skilled. But that's not like, and it's, as I said, not because that's a strong statement maybe, but that's usually how it goes, because if your focus is to make money and start a business, you're not going to spend as much time on your coding skills. That's at least how I think about it. And if you want to have, as I said, a good comparison, compare the coding skills of Bill Gates to the coding skills of Linus Torvalds, if that is even possible. But then you should get a sensation of what I'm saying here. And then you can compare the income of Bill Gates versus Linus Torvalds, if you want to make that comparison. But I'll leave that comparison up to you. Have a great day.